Hi, my name is Nicole, and welcome to the Worth of a Woman study. Today, we're talking about being worthy of love. Now, I can tell you that when I was a kid, being unworthy of a love was such a barbaric thought. You see, I grew up in a very loving home where my parents would pray over us and tuck us in every night, where my dad made sure we knew that we were his princesses, and love was just abounding in our home growing up. So I didn't think that the world existed any differently than that, like any kid would do. And so in third grade, when my mom set us down as three girls and said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to now be a home that opens up its doors to foster boys," I remember thinking, what does this really mean? And for the first time in my life, my eyes were opened to what it meant for people who hadn't experienced life the way I had experienced life. You see, I remember one boy in particular who every month would take a garbage bag full of stuffed animals. He'd throw all of his stuffed animals off his bed into the garbage bag. He'd load them up in the car. My parents would take him to court. Every time he was hoping that he wouldn't come back with my parents, that perhaps his mom had done what she had said she was going to do so that he could go home with her. I remember every month watching him come back, put those stuffed animals on his bed, weeping and seeing what it meant to be fully broken by love. You see, each one of those boys that came into our house had been completely broken by love in some particular instance. Yet each one of them would push away all the love that my parents would try to give them because they did not know how to receive love. Every single one of those boys was worthy of an intense kind of love. You see, I'm reminded of Mark 12:30. It says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength." And part of me goes, Lord, how in the world are we supposed to give that kind of love if so many of us have never experienced that kind of love? But then I constantly feel like God tells me, you know what, Nikki, don't you understand that it's in my brokenness, it's in your brokenness that I become real? You see, is God enough? If the whole world turns on you, your family, your parents, is God enough? I pray that the answer for us would be yes. You see, there are times when we have done nothing wrong except handed a bad card in life, where love has left us completely empty. And our first inclination is to attribute the love of this world to the love of God and think that He would leave us just as empty. However, although love from God and love from this world, it's hard to separate because it's the same word, but it is so different. You see, the only thing that they have in common is just that same word. The definition is completely different. In fact, the scriptures actually tell us that God is love. You cannot separate love from God. He just does not give love, like He truly embodies the word. He's defined by it. The theme of the entire scriptures, if you try to wrap it up, guess what it would be? Love, right? But here's the thing, no matter your past, no matter your current circumstances, like you are loved and you can't separate that from God. This kind of love, we can only give this kind of love. Like when He talks about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, the only way you can give that kind of love is being tapped into that love. You see, we get a perfect example of this in John 4. There's this Samaritan woman, and she's sitting by a well. And Jesus as walking through Samaria. He sends His disciples into the town to get food. And He goes and sits by the well. And He looks at this Samaritan woman on the longest one-on-one chat recorded in the scriptures. And it has to be with a woman. Kind of cool, right? And He looks at her and He says, "Can you get me a drink of water?" And I'm sure this woman was like, "Who you talking to? You're not talking to me, right? Like, why would you be talking to me?" Because there's three reasons, and I'm sure there's more, but there's three that I know off the bat that He should not be talking to this woman. One, she was a Samaritan, he was a Jew. Now, long history there, message me, I'll tell you all about it. But they did not like each other, and there was no like, let's speak and try and get along going on there, right? The second one, it was kind of protocol during that time that women did not speak to men. Flip that. Men did not speak to women without their husbands present. And so Jesus was kind of breaking protocol by even speaking with this woman alone. The third reason that He shouldn't be speaking to her is there is a reason she was there in the middle of the day. You see, it was like hot there. And so people would go, they would walk to the well during the morning and the evening hours. You wouldn't go in the heat of the day and walk to the well. If you were in the heat of the day going to the well, you were avoiding people. You were more like a society's outcast. And here this woman is standing at the well. And so Jesus asks her for a drink, and then he looks at her and he says, hey, whomever drinks of the water I give, they'll never thirst again. And I love this woman. I think we could be friends because she does the same thing I do. She immediately takes God's words and flips them into her own comfort, like to make life easier on her. And she's thinking, ooh, magic water. Like, I don't have to walk to the well. This would be so nice. I don't have to face these people I don't like. Okay, like, yeah, give me some of that. And I think Jesus was like, oh, she missed it again. Like, I'm trying to get to the heart of her, and I'm way more concerned with her character right now than I am her comfort. And I'm trying to get to what's really going on in the depth of her soul. And she keeps on taking everything I'm saying as trying to make life easier on her. I do that. Anybody else guilty of that? How quickly we are to grasp what God is saying if it provides us a greater comfort immediately. But anyways, then Jesus looks at her, and so he's like, okay, well, she's not getting it. So he says, hey, go get your husband. At this point, she has a choice to make. She can either be totally real with Jesus and tell him what's really going on, or she doesn't know this man. We know he's the Messiah. We know he's Lord, but she doesn't. He's just some Jewish man sitting at the well. But something was different about him. You see, she had a choice to make on if she was going to be honest and tell him what was really going on, or if she was going to fib and just say what she wanted him to think about her. And, but she tells him the truth. In fact, she says, I don't have a husband. Maybe it's because this man has already shown her more consideration than any man has ever, shown her in her life. But he looks at her and he says, you're right. You actually don't have a husband, and you've had 5, and the man you're with right now isn't even your husband. Now, let's put this into today's perspective. If you're in Walmart and you're getting some bottled water, deciding between like a 24-pack or a 36-pack, right? And some man comes up to you and asks you for a bottle and then starts putting all your sins on blast and saying, hey, I know what you've done. And he's like nailing it on the head. What would you be doing? Security, I'm running for the entrance. Get me away. This is what this woman does. She looks at him and she says, tell me where you worship. In other words, like, I want to follow you. I want to be around you. Now, what made that happen right there? I believe that Jesus oozes love. Like, I think that this man had shown her so much kindness in the way he spoke with her. Perhaps it was the loving eyes that he looked at her, or maybe she knew like he was seeing through her. He was like actually seeing her for the first time. Something happened in that moment that isn't even written directly in the words that made this woman want to follow him. Even more so, she actually decides that she wants to go running into town and tell people about him. But first, let's go back. She had to be vulnerable with him. She had to be real with him. And I'm going to tell you right now, Jesus wants to give you that crazy kind of love, but he wants you to be real with him. You see, vulnerability in today's society looks like such a weakness, but vulnerability with Jesus, it shows the depth that his love needs to go within our souls, right? Vulnerability reveals our brokenness, and brokenness doesn't necessarily mean weakness. It means somewhere that God needs to penetrate, to get into, to change our life, to bring wholeness, to heal. Our brokenness, it's in those moments that we talked about at the beginning that God's love becomes so tangible. So this Samaritan woman, this complete outcast, she discovers God's love through this simple conversation. And because she was real, because she was vulnerable, she actually goes running into town. And this is a woman that's avoiding people. She goes running straight into town and she says, come see a man who's told me everything that I've done. That's like going through Walmart going, after he's put your sins on blast, going, everybody come check out the guy in the water section. He just told me everything I did wrong. You see, there was something so different about Jesus, something we've never experienced in a human body ever, something we'll never experience again in a human body until we meet him face to face. You see, his love heals all of the baggage, all of the hurts that this world's love has done to our hearts. His love for you, it's so broad you can't hide from it. And if your eyes are open, you're even going to see it in the tedious tasks of life, like getting water. His love is so deep that it actually requires intimacy. It actually requires you to be vulnerable and be aware and show your brokenness to him. But here's the cool thing. Just like this woman, when we open our hearts to his love, our immediate inclination is to give that love back to him. That's why that woman went running into town to bring other people to him, so that they could see this love. She was immediately in love with this man and wanted everybody else to experience this too. To the woman that was an outcast and hiding from society, she now experienced something that changed her, and she is now running into society, running into the people to be the spokesperson for Jesus. You see, he knows your innermost faults. He knows all your weaknesses. In fact, he knows your brokenness. He just wants you to be real with him. But here's what he does. And he did this for this woman. He gives grace upon grace upon grace upon grace. That when he speaks to you, you will hear the love in his voice. We may not have a tangible experience with Jesus like this woman had, where we can say, hey, Jesus, can you meet me in the water section of Walmart? But guess what? We do get to experience him anywhere we want to. Sit down, have a conversation with him, be real, be tangible, and I promise you, you will experience his love because you are worthy of such a love.